What if I told you that the flower you're looking at is in fact not a single flower, but dozens of small flowers comprising one flower head? Before we get to the topic of today's video, the family Asteraceae, let me remind you how we group plants into families and why knowing how to do that can be super useful for you. Members of the same family not only have a close genetic relationship amongst each other, but they also have morphological characters in common. And that means they usually look very similar to each other, especially in their flowers and fruits. So when we talked about Brassicaceae in the previous video, we mentioned the growth form of plants belonging to this family, as well as the type and arrangement of their leaves, but we mainly focused on their flower parts. Brassicaceae flowers have 4 petals, 4 sepals, 6 stamens, of which 4 are long and 2 are short, and 1 stigma. By learning these rules or patterns of the families, you can identify any plant into a plant family and thus get really far with plant identification. But before you learn characters for different families, you need to be familiar with flower parts. If you need some help in that area, watch the video I created on that topic. I'll link it down below, or you can also watch it by clicking here. Okay, so we know a flower usually consists of sepals, petals, and reproductive structures. Now look at this flower. Can you even tell me which part is which? Where are the petals, and why is there no stigma sticking out in the middle? And what are these structures below the flower? Even when you know basic plant morphology well, the family Asteraceae might throw you off. And getting back to where we started with this video, what appears to you as a single flower is actually multiple flowers of 2 types arranged together into a single flower head. The flower head is referred to as capitulum, and you might hear these 2 terms interchangeably. Let's see it closely with this Venegasia. The yellow structures around the margin that might remind you of petals are ray flowers. The darker yellow center of the flower head is composed of many disc flowers. Let me dissect this flower head so you can see the individual flowers closely. So all these parts are individual ray flowers. When we look closely, we can see this flat strap-like part. That's the corolla, and we referred to it as a ray. Lower down, there is a stigma on a style. That's the female reproductive structure. On the very bottom of this ray flower, we can see an ovary that will develop into a fruit. Ray flowers are either pistillate, having a female reproductive structure, for example in this Venegasia, or they might be sterile, not having any reproductive structures. Sometimes you might even see lobes at the tip of the ray, like in this Encelia, but that's not always the case. You might come across the term ligulate flower instead of ray flower. Even though these terms are often used interchangeably, technically a ligulate flower is bisexual, and if its corolla has lobes, there are usually 5 of them. On the other hand, a ray flower is, as we mentioned earlier, either pistillate or sterile, and often with 3 lobes. So after I pulled off all the ray flowers from this Venegasia flower head, all that's left is the center composed of many disc flowers. Each one of these tiny structures is one complete flower. Looking closely, you can see its corolla consisting of fused petals, the stigma that's sticking out, and on the very bottom there's an ovary. You can't see any anthers there, but they're fused into a column right below the style. This unique type of inflorescence composed of multiple flowers is a distinguishing character for Asteraceae. Because of this character, plants belonging to this family are also alternatively referred to as composites. But both types of flowers, ray and disc, do not always have to be present. In some Asteraceae species, flower heads consist of only ligulate or only disc flowers. Some examples of discoid heads, flowers heads with disc flowers only, are thistles, discotula, or oncosyphon. For ligulate flower heads, you can think of the common dandelion. All of their flowers are ligulate, and every one of them turns into a seed. Think about those fluffy seed heads you've probably all seen at some point in your life. Each seed originated from one flower. I also want to show you a picture of Stephanemeria, which also has ligulate flower heads, and you can actually see both the stigma and the column of anthers very clearly here. One more important characteristic of Asteraceae, and a hard to overlook character, are these scale-like structures underneath the flower head. These are called Phyllaries, and the whole grouping of Phyllaries is an involucre. Their number, their shape, and their arrangement are all key characteristics for determining the plant species. But you know now that if you see these scales on a plant, you're most likely dealing with a plant from the family Asteraceae. I want to hear from you. Were you aware of the fact that flowers, such as sunflowers, are in fact a composition of many tiny flowers? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to support my work, please share this video with others and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.